up a dive. Feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wide variety. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild and variety. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Paranormal Spectrum here on the Untold Radio Network. I am your host, Barnaby Jones, from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. Welcome to the first episode of 2026. No, Lee, we did not have a Monday Monsters on the Edge for several reasons, but there was no episode this Monday. There was two different guests both scheduled, one and then they had to cancel, and then another one that was supposed to be a pre-recorded episode, and that one had to get rescheduled as well, and so there was no episode this Monday. So if you were looking for it, it didn't exist. It tried to exist. It didn't exist. So with that being said, guys, if you guys want to start your year off on a spooky note, we are going to be in DeKalb, Illinois for Obscura Paracon, March 21st and 22nd. All kinds of cool guests going to be there. Myself, Dave Schrader, Amelia Cotter, and more. They're still announcing guests on their website, obscuraparacon.com. Tickets are available now for this great 2-day event inside of a castle. Going to be a great time there. And then, guys, Contact Modalities Expo in Delavan, Wisconsin, May 1st through the 3rd. Myself and fellow Untold Radio host Dean Bertram will be there, as well as several of my other past guests, including Zach Screedy and Jack Chavez and a bunch of other awesome people. I don't even know half these people, unfortunately, so we're going to have to get them on the show as well. And then, guys, tickets are on sale now for Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Convention coming to you Saturday, May 9th from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. We have everything from Bigfoot, metaphysical, UFOs, cryptids, you name it. Over 20 speakers and workshops at this event. There will be 2 speaker rooms, a workshop room, and a ton of vendors as well. It all kicks off Friday afternoon with a kids Bigfoot hike, 1 hour daytime educational, informational expedition into the woods with myself, Chris McCreary, Lauren Smith, and Kelly Milner Halls, giving your kids some experiences with Bigfoot and what to look for and so forth. And then for the more adventurous souls, we also have a night hike on the 8th, the night before as well. Lauren Smith, Chris McCreary, Jay Bachochin here from Wisconsin, myself, Ken Gerhard, and Larry Eisler will all be part of this expedition. So if you guys want to come out and share some fun stuff that night, hope to see you guys all there. If you're interested in either of the Bigfoot hikes, they do sell out fast. Space is limited. We want to make sure everyone has a good time. So make sure you guys check that out. And then, of course, guys, June 13th, we are headed to Chicago, Illinois for the Chicago Paranormal Convention in Countryside, Illinois. And then looking out there, the Belleville Public Library in October for a UFO UAP discussion. That's what's coming up so far this year. More events are being added. If you want me to come and speak at your event, head on over to wisconsincaps.com or email me at wisconsincaps@gmail.com. With that being said, we are live today. So if you guys have any questions or comments throughout the show, throw them in the comments section and we'll get to them as soon as possible. Without any further ado, let's get to our guest. All right, guys, my guest is the host of the wonderful podcast show Around the Fireplace. He is a short story author, a YouTuber, and a paranormal enthusiast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the narrator. Hello, how are you doing?
How are you, Barnaby? I'm fine.
I am doing well. Glad to see your happy little face here. Little technical issues and stuff starting the show. That's why we're a little late, but got everything all situated. So why don't we start out? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your podcast.
I'm a lifelong experiencer, beginning in early childhood, and researcher. I wouldn't speak in terms of my podcast, more my YouTube channel in general. That is a vehicle for 2 things: A, my short fiction, and B, it's a vlog, a paranormal vlog, for my own, chronicling my own experiences and my own thoughts on them and on Fortiana in general.
Very cool. So you were a lifelong researcher. We've known each other for quite a long time.
Yes.
Full disclosure here, but so I kind of knew that you were into this stuff, but when did this all come about? When did you start getting interested in it, and what was your first experience?
My first experience, I don't actually remember. My father does, but he did not see directly, so even he doesn't really know what happened. It was a weeknight when I was 4 or 5 years old. We were in the back bedroom of the 2nd floor of my childhood home. I looked out the window and I am told that I reacted terribly, that I saw something that really frightened me. But I don't remember what that was, and I don't remember this. I'm just told that it happened. So that would have been it.
So you never at the time even said what was out there or what you thought you saw?
No, I must not have. As for the research, that began again in childhood with those generic encyclopedias. Man, Myth, and Magic, Time Life Guide to the Unexplained, very generic resources.
So did you kind of seek out the unknown then at that point?
At 7 or 8 years old, no.
Okay. So you've had other experiences with the paranormal since then, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So when did that start happening, I guess?
Those began, in early childhood. Oftentimes there weren't individual experiences. It was more just this sustained feeling of a presence in the home, of being watched and followed, of having my thoughts read, being listened to, etc. That was during the daytime. That was at nighttime. It was 24/7, and it was unevenly distributed throughout the home. The first floor was clear, was clean, it was all right. It was the basement, in particular the back room of the basement, and the second floor, in particular my bedroom, that it was most apparent, most concentrated.
So nobody else in your family or anything had any kind of experiences or nothing?
Both my parents did, but not to the same extent. My mother has described seeing a figure in a gray shawl, like a gray shadow person, on the stairs and on the second floor. That would have been in the late 1980s, before I was born. And my father has described feeling a sense of dread, overwhelming dread. Like an ick feeling in the back room of the basement.
So it seems like they were already kind of interested in the paranormal and stuff, or maybe not interested, but having those experiences prior to you coming along.
Yes.
So you kind of grew up in an opener household, like that things weren't necessarily, there's no such thing as a boogeyman or no such thing as these spirits or paranormal or ghosts or anything. You were more open to that stuff growing up.
Yes.
Interesting. So did they kind of encourage that kind of research in you?
No, they didn't discourage it, but they didn't actively encourage it either. I don't know that they even noticed.
So what was would you say your most like impactful experience throughout that time of living there?
It wasn't just in my childhood home, it was in my grandfather's home. I remember, for context, I could never sleep. Because while this did go on all day long, it was obviously worse at night. Or it felt worse at night just because it was night. So in the summer of 95 or 96, my father offered to basically sit up in my room with me until I fell asleep, and then he would go to sleep. Basically as a stopgap, as a Band-Aid solution. So I accepted that. One night I woke up and I looked over and I saw what at first I thought was him on the chair in the center of the room. Then I looked closer and I realized, holy, this isn't him. This is like an emaciated ghoul like slumped on the chair where he had been sitting, with like tattered hobo versions of the clothing he was wearing that day. And it didn't look up at me. It didn't even seem to notice me. It just gazed blankly at the wall. And then my memory cuts out. That was probably the most visually memorable experience. I use memorable for lack of a better term.
So do you think, like, when you saw that, you said it looked like your father in appearance, like the clothing that it had been wearing and stuff?
I thought it was him at first because it
Mm.
was dark, but then I looked closer and I realized it wasn't him at all. It was this emaciated, sort of zombie-like figure in tattered versions of the clothing he had worn that day.
So looking back at that, what do you make of that? What do you think that was?
You know, on my channel, I've discussed and I've explored in depth the notion that at least some of these experiences may be symbolic. The visual components, the appearance of the entity and so forth, may be symbolic in the same way, tarot artwork is symbolic, the same way Eliphas Levi's Baphomet is symbolic. His efforts towards helping me sleep really had been feeble. He really wasn't addressing the underlying issue. He was just going on the assumption that I was having difficulty sleeping. And so the the wizened, sort of wasted appearance of this thing may have been a visual mockery of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered. I don't have many insights, to be honest.
Did you have, like, why did you have trouble sleeping? Did you have bad dreams, or could you just not sleep in general, like insomnia kind of?
It was the feeling of this presence.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was always afraid something was about to appear. I had this episode. It was like I would see in my mind's eye the back room of the basement. And I would see this tall, dark figure with no distinct features materialize in there, and I would see it make its way gradually up the first floor, or up to the first floor rather, then up to the second floor, and then up to the stairhead, at which point in real life it would have been visible. I have to sneeze quick. Sorry. And then right as it would have appeared in real life, just up the hall from me, the sequence would end and it would resume from the beginning. And so it was, and yet I never saw the thing outside my mind's eye. So I would see things like that. I would have things like that going. Yeah, I was always frozen in my bed.
I know you've explored I've kind of skimmed through your channel and stuff. You've talked about, like, the hag syndrome,
Yes.
and the shadow entities and stuff like that. Do you think, how do you put that all together?
What do you mean put all that together? Explain all that?
Yeah, do you think that, so there's a lot of things that, like, seem to be ingrained in our brains. I've talked on my show about, like, how, we all seem to be afraid of this thing chasing us up staircases, or the monster under the bed, or the closet. And you see these tropes throughout a lot of the paranormal and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you've brought up a couple of those. I mean, the dark room of the basement, the staircase and stuff, just in this telling here. So why do you think so many people are afraid of those places?
Those locations within their homes?
Yeah.
Well, it's not just the location themselves, it's things related to the locations. Put it in perspective, the space beneath one's bed is confined. At night, when you were asleep, in theory, anything could be under there, or anything or anyone could slide out from underneath or could reach up. If you're asleep, obviously you wouldn't know what's going on. You would wake up during, you'd be at a marked disadvantage. Should that lead to an altercation, you have to get out of your room, which obviously door isn't locked, but that could still be a hurdle. I don't know. I know that puts it in the lamest possible terms, but that's probably why it's just the logistics. As for the closet, again, usually these fears emerge in the context of sleeping in your room at night. Obviously, during the day, you wouldn't be afraid of your closet. You can see in, etc. But at night, again, even though you can get up and leave your room whenever you want, it still is something of a confined space. And there still is some, I guess, some logistical issues of getting out into the second floor hallway. I don't know.
Fair enough.
But I do. I'm sorry. I see it in pretty lame terms. So, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I want to ask you this because I know Lee Warner's in the audience here, and she's going to ask you this anyway. But if you don't mind, do you know what your blood type is?
I don't. And yes, I have explored this in the past.
Okay. Interesting. I know, like, some of the stuff like that you're kind of talking about, like with having trouble sleeping and stuff like that. I wonder if it's connected with like extraterrestrial, interdimensional, and not just the paranormal. Have you had any kind of UFO or paranormal, like extraterrestrial experiences?
I've seen objects in the sky that I personally couldn't identify, but I don't know that they were what you're describing. I think that these more likely would just have been mundane objects. I've never had an abduction scenario that I know of.
Okay. I was just curious because, if some of that stuff surrounding like being in the bed and trouble sleeping at night, a lot of the abductions and stuff take place that way. But the entity that you saw in the basement, was that the same shadowy figure? Did that follow you from your parents' house or your family home to your grandparents' home or anything?
I did have one experience in relation to my grandfather's home, which was the same way. It wasn't like this when my father and my uncles were growing up there, but it became like it later on. Is the feeling of being watched, being followed, again, being listened to, having your thoughts read, eerie feeling of a dense atmosphere, almost like you could just reach forth and touch the air. Time dilation. You could spend, you could go inside the place, be there however long, think you've been in there for hours, then you step outside and check your watch and it's been 20 minutes. So and this was in the summer of 1998 after my grandfather had died, and we were cleaning up the place for resale. And so every weekend or every Friday night we'd go up there to Marinette, where it was and is located. And that was that summer. And I remember once, I think this was later on in like September, Saturday night, we had just gotten back and we went to bed for the evening. It wasn't terribly late. It was like a little after 10. Most people, this being Saturday night, would still have been awake. And I'm laying in bed, and suddenly I get this sense of dread, like something really bad is about to happen. And my attention was drawn to the upper corner on the opposite wall, diagonal from me, across the room. And then suddenly this deep guttural basso profundo laughter, this Hollywood demonic laughter begins, taunting. Like, it was, the sense I got was that knew I was afraid, it liked that I was afraid, it was enjoying scaring me, and it echoed and reverberated, kind of spawning duplicates of itself for just several seconds. And yeah, I went into shock. Maybe not literally, but it felt like it. I screamed for my parents. They got up, came in, and yeah, I frantically tried to explain what had happened, and oddly enough, they hadn't heard it at all, even though it was loud and clear to me. So yeah.
Well, in that case, you don't necessarily have the you're not frozen. You can move.
Yeah, I was wide awake.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. So these experiences that you've had, they didn't like traumatize you enough, or did they? You're still interested in the topic. Like, you've done research. You're doing all this stuff now. So where did that transition come from being having these experiences to more exploring it and trying to figure it all out?
I've always read. I've always been the sort of person who takes interests in things and reads about them to begin with. So it began as soon as I had access to information, as soon as I had access to library books, to the internet, etc. Which, again, I remember reading those generic encyclopedias when I was in elementary school, and I remember renting like the UFO diaries on VHS, the mini documentary series. So yeah, again, a little later on. So yeah, it was as soon as I had access to media, basically.
Very cool. All right, man. Well, so you're also you talked about your channel being kind of like a blog and stuff like that. You do a lot of like short stories and paranormal stories and stuff like that. What got you interested in the writing of that, and what kind of stuff do you work on?
I'm not writing anything at the moment. As for fiction writing, that for me actually has nothing to do with the paranormal.
Oh, okay.
It's just a coincidence that I write supernatural fiction, and then I'm a Fortean. The two don't really influence each other very much. So as far as writing, I don't know. I always just enjoyed writing. So, back in 2014, just for the hell of it, I wrote a short story. And then another and another and another, and they accumulated. So
Interesting. For some reason, I was thinking that you talked about your YouTube channel. I thought like that they were your short stories that you were like reading on there or something.
those are my original words, yes.
Yeah. Okay. See. All right. We're good. So interesting. But they're not based on anything like your experiences or nothing.
No.
Okay. Interesting. So have you've gone out on some other like paranormal investigations or anything, or have you taken it to that level now?
I haven't. The reason is I've had so many of my own involuntary experiences, I don't really have a need to seek them out, you know?
Do you still experience that kind of stuff? Do you still have problems sleeping in that?
No.
No. Okay. So when
No.
did that end up stopping?
You know, puberty,
Interesting.
a liminal or transitional phase. It you know, it gradually slowed down and before ceasing altogether by the time I was 14.
Interesting.
Last experience I had in my childhood home was, yeah, when I was 14. That was a weeknight, winter. I was in my room and I heard suddenly voices like they were coming from the floor. Very low, very hoarse, haggard sounding, kind of moaning my name. Michael. Yeah, and by then I was desensitized. I was just whatever, you know. That was my last experience in that home, and that was the first I'd had in quite a while to begin with.
Interesting. Do you think that you had like as like empathic or medium abilities? We like a lot of the times like those things start to manifest in puberty, but it seems like maybe you had some sort of abilities growing up and you kind of phased that out during puberty.
Maybe. No, I don't recall ever having mediumistic abilities. I've had a couple of precognitive episodes, but they were very mild. They were like the Seinfeld of precognitive episodes, like precognitive episodes about nothing, about like a new vending machine being installed in the front floor of a college campus. You know, that was when I was in my early 20s. So, no, and I wouldn't say I ever had any abilities in that regard. Because it picked up again in my early 20s, and I was in college. Again, I was about to say linear, a liminal or a transitional time.
Mm-hmm.
But these were more outdoor focused, and these I think were more locational.
Well, see, that would still tie in with, having those abilities or being open to that stuff. You're obviously, if you're interested in the topic and that, and doing the research on it, you're still leaving yourself open to that, which is opening that door back up. So,
Well, I don't know. See, a focus of my research has been what is the X factor that causes these experiences? Is it location? Is the energy or the intelligences, are they bound to locations and the recipients find themselves at these locations? Or is it tied more to the percipients? Because, it seems there's elements of both. You can have families, what you might call generational experiencers. Like my family is like that. This didn't begin with me. Where it seems it's almost like it's passed down and inherited.
mm-hmm.
And then you have like window areas, hotspots, etc., where it seems anyone who goes to these places comes back with experiences. So, it's like, is it, again, is it location based? Is it person based? Because there are elements of both. You know, I always assumed, for me, you know, it was person based, that there was something to my family and to others like us that draws the attention of these things. And I was looking into blood type. But, you know, then as I did a video on the topic, it really came to me that maybe not, you know, because a significant amount of our experiences has been in the woods. And I discussed this on my channel in Marinette County, and we're far from the only ones to have experienced weird things there. And much of what we've experienced there is the kind of stuff that's usually location based. Like Oz Factor, Missing 411 type phenomena, the sudden eerie silence in the woods, time dilation again, etc. Orbs. And so I've come to wonder if, you know, maybe this stuff is just much more common than I ever realized, than most people seem to ever realize. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe because my focus on it is greater, I notice it more, I catalog it more. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that you're definitely on the right track there. It's kind of very similar to the way my team CAPS started. We started looking into areas of high experiences and stuff. One of the first sets of investigations we did was based around urban legends. And we went to different locations around Wisconsin stuff where these urban legends supposedly took place to see if there was high EMF in the area, if there was something with the location itself, or if it was, you know, like you said, location based. You know, why are these certain areas having all this stuff, like the window location as well? You know, the whole Burlington Woods that we focused on when we first started was very much a window location. Everything from Bigfoot, fairies, paranormal, UFOs, all this stuff was happening in that location. And even on this show, we just recently had a whole discussion about are these areas have a lot of quartz minerals, like buried in the ground or something there, where they're concentrating this energy and kind of a conduit for it. So it's kind of like a parallel to what your research and stuff has gone down. But I think you're also right, because you're open to it. And I think that a lot of this stuff is around us all the time. And just having those experiences of knowing that it's there and no longer saying it's a trick of the eye or something like that, that being open to it has opened you more to acknowledge the things that you've seen and experienced. So, yeah, interesting. Anything to add to that?
No, I agree with everything he said.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you? What have you come to as far as that? Do you think that it's more everything around us, or do you think that it's location based or personal based?
As far as everything around us, I should clarify my position. I see these phenomena holistically. That is, I see them as being a natural part of our environment, as a built-in part of our reality, just like the stars, just like a frog on a lily pad. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It was just one that we don't really a part of reality that we just don't really understand. But yeah, I see it as integral. I don't see it as something originating from somewhere else and then subverting or sneaking into our reality, which is what most paranormalists seem to think. And that's how it's usually presented, at least in book and documentary blurbs, back cover blurbs, you know. So, as far as locational, I think it could be both. And I think it could be that there is a genetic component or something specific to experiencers that draws these intelligences to them. I think these intelligences could also arrange things so that they end up in active locations. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Have you done any kind of meditation or anything to try and enhance that, like in your research?
No.
Did you ever try anything like that to get rid of the stuff when you were having all those experiences?
You mean like smudging?
Anything? Yeah.
No, I was only a child. I would have never heard of those things. I would have had no idea how to perform them. I wouldn't even have been able to access the needed ingredients, supplies. Nothing was done at the time. The several years that I lived through that. Yeah, nothing was really done in the house. It was just kind of managing it, just living with it, you know.
Interesting. Are you into any of that stuff like now, as far as like meditation or any of the holistic healing and stuff like that? No. Interesting. All right. So let's see. Yeah, I know you've talked on your show and stuff about the Marinette Menominee and stuff like that. We've done a lot of research up in that area as well, and I saw you had a whole episode or talking about the UFO in conjunction with the Peshtigo fire.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me about that.
There's not much to say. Obviously, this was before the modern UFO era, so they wouldn't have interpreted it as a UFO at the time. They interpreted it in more religious terms. And not much. Again, not much to say. It was a large burning object in the sky that fit the definition of what we today would call a UFO. It was just seen briefly at the height of the carnage.
So the fire had already started when they
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That we don't know what that was, though. We don't, it could have been a very natural and mundane phenomena. It could have been something different, but no one saw it when it first appeared. No one saw where it came from if it didn't form from the fire itself. What direction, from what elevation, maybe it descended from a higher elevation. Not sure. It was, best we know, suddenly it was just there.
Have you ever been to the Peshtigo Fire Museum?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I have not, but from working up in that area, I've heard a lot of stories about the building and the museum itself being haunted. Did you have any kind of weird feelings or anything there?
Understand, I went there once.
Okay.
When I was like 10.
Okay.
It was a weekday afternoon, I think spring or early summer, with my mother and I think my aunt. One of my aunts. I don't No, I didn't sense anything, and I would have remembered it if I did. But that was once. I've been past it numerous times since, just because of my family connection to Marinette County. But I have not been inside since then.
I was just curious since like I knew that you were from all that area and stuff, so I thought,
Yeah.
interesting. But yeah, we haven't done too much in Marinette. We've spent a lot of time over in Menominee. We did a whole series about the haunted buildings and stuff downtown Menominee, Michigan. So I don't know if you're familiar with much of that over there.
Sadly, I am not. I'm really only familiar with I was going to say the more rural parts of Marinette County, but then again, it's all rural. Like the Athelstan, Crivets, Wasaki area.
Interesting. Well, what else? What else have you researched? What else have you dug into?
You know, uh, UFOs, UFO nuts, abductions, stuff like that. I'm not big on cryptids, by which I should say I'm not big on individual cryptids. I don't have one that I'm super attached to that I keep coming back to. But cryptids in a general sense, I run the gamut.
Have you been keeping up on all the UFO disclosure and government stuff going on right now?
From a distance.
From a distance. That's a good way to handle most government things, yeah.
Not terribly closely. I've always been critical of ufologists and UFO buffs who are always looking to the government, always thinking of the government. When's the government? The government this, government that. You know, the government might not know nearly as much as you think it does. I don't know why you assume it does. You know, I never, I was always very focused on the physics of the phenomena, on, the role of plasma and electromagnetism, etc. Things like that. I was always very focused on parallels with from folklore with pre-modern antecedents. But the government aspect of the phenomena, how much the state knows, how much it's holding out, how much this, I never, that was never really a focus of mine, because I have always doubted that they know much more than the average armchair researcher,
Mm-hmm. I think you got a point there. I think maybe certain people in the government know a little bit more or have had experience or interactions with stuff, but I think the majority of them, they don't, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing most of the time. And I think there's a lot of unknowing there.
Yeah. And we have these characters like, is it Michael or Matthew Brown? I think it's Matthew Brown.
Matt Brown, yeah.
And I won't name others, but they'll make these statements about celestial hierarchies and rulers of the earth and, Enochian magic and this and that. And just because these people are affiliated with the state doesn't mean we should necessarily believe them or omit the grain of salt when reading them or listening to them, because even with connections to the state, that's no guarantee you know what you're talking about, or that even then that your information is correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole conversation around UFOs, UAPs, and stuff has gone from a very nuts and bolts craft of extraterrestrial origin and stuff to more of a very metaphysical, interdimensional kind of talk.
Yes.
I find that very interesting.
Well, yeah, it would seem that the John Keel, Jacques Vallée, J. Allen Hynek, what have you, approach, that understanding, that framing of the issue has won out. Has become mainstream. I think it appeals more to the imagination, which, whether people want to admit it or not, that's always a big draw, or always a big reason people are drawn to things. It allows for a lot more interesting questions and discussions than a strict, nuts and bolts ETH approach would.
Yeah. Have you looked into like there's a lot of crossover between like the fairy lore and the UFO lore and stuff like that. How much of this stuff do you think is, like less extraterrestrial, like off world, and more just misidentifications of things here? Like we already talked about things always being around us and just experiencing it or seeing it or being open to it.
Mm-hmm.
So how much of this stuff do you think is, people are classifying as UAP, interdimensional, or fairy, or all that stuff that's just naturally occurring right here on Earth?
Well, I'm going to begin by taking issue with the term interdimensional. I don't know if that term has any scientific meaning, or if it's just found in speculative fiction. I've always understood a dimension to be like an aspect of something, like its length or width of a piece of wood, or its dimensions. I don't know that a dimension is like a place, a location that you can go to and from. You know what I mean? So I don't really know that term itself. I don't really even know how to respond to that. Generally speaking, yeah, I think the bulk of this phenomena originates on Earth. Originates in our time and our space, in physics terms. I think it may originate at a different, and this term isn't scientific at all, but a different frequency, so to speak, just beyond our immediate perception.
All right, man. Well, we are coming up on the end of the show here. We want to talk a little bit more about your YouTube channel, what people can find. I know you've done some like interesting interviews and stuff as well. Who have you talked to, and what can people find on your channel?
Could you ask the second question again?
Who have you gotten to talk to, and what can people find on your channel?
I have done 2 interviews so far on the podcast. One is my longtime colleague, AP Strange, who is a musician, an artist, podcast host himself, and a lifelong experiencer and researcher, who I highly recommend everyone checking out his work. And I have also interviewed Robin, who is a member of our group, the Megonian Research Group on Discord, who's, not much of an experiencer herself, but a committed researcher. focusing mainly on cryptids. On the channel in general, you can find my thoughts on various Fortean topics. You'll notice there are certain recurring themes I return to often. You can find descriptions of my and my family's experiences, which began this whole thing, and my short stories. The production quality isn't always the best. It wasn't the best at first. It has steadily improved. So yeah, you can find a variety of content.
Very cool, man. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your stories and your experiences with everybody here.
I appreciate your having me.
Very cool, man. All right. Well, we have the link to your YouTube in the show notes for anybody that's interested as well. So awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. I will talk to you there.
All right. Take it easy.
All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back on Monday on Monsters on the Edge. We will be live again on Monday, as well as back here next Thursday live on the Untold Radio Network. Until then, if you're interested in more of Mike, the narrator's thoughts and opinions and stuff, head on over to his YouTube channel and check that out. The link is in the show notes for you. Until next time, guys, remember, we are all part of the paranormal spectrum. Take care, be well, and I'll see you next week.
You seem to know something